Вярвах аз, че вечно ще живее. Най-хубавите ми години отне и после си замина, ала нощем още те търся. Като птица съм свободна, но на воля не отлитам. От години свикнала съм да обичам само тебе. Като птица съм свободна, но на воля не отлитам.
Greetings, Uncle Travelling Matt here, and this is my blog from the first day, or I guess you may even say the second day actually, of our Balkans 2022 trip. And I have to report, so far it's been a complete and utter disaster. Everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong. It's been really awful. So what's happened? Well, we got up very early yesterday to take the train to Manchester Airport. Got to Manchester Airport on time. It wasn't that congested. We were really worried it would be because there's been a lot of issue in airports. But the flight to Frankfurt was delayed because there'd been issues in Frankfurt before. So it was late coming in and then it was late going out. We got to Frankfurt. That wasn't really a problem because we had a long time in Frankfurt. And actually, it did create a bit of a problem because what we said we'd do, we'd go into Frankfurt, maybe go to a museum and then meet my friend Gilbert. And in the end, we didn't go to a museum and we were actually about 20 minutes late meeting Gilbert. But that was nice. So Gilbert is a friend of mine from Bulgaria. About 25 years ago, I knew him back then as a penniless student and we've stayed in touch. And I've met up with him in Budapest and in Frankfurt before as well, and Berlin as well. Yes, I met him in Berlin, and he's a banker in Frankfurt. So that was great. We met up with him. We had some wurst. That was nice, and we had a little wander around Frankfurt, which I went to on the with Thomas on the van trip that we did in, I think it was 2019, that one. It was the first bongo trip, and but we didn't see that much of it, so we saw a little bit more, then went back, but the flight was delayed over an hour, partly because they couldn't, there was issues with the staff, and then there was an electrical storm, which meant that nothing could happen, and so it was delayed over an hour, and when we got into Vienna, our flight onwards to Podgorica had already left, about 5 minutes before, quite annoyingly. So then there was a big hassle about getting a hotel for the night, which they paid for, and getting flights onwards. So there was loads of queuing. It was horrendous. It was awful. It really was. But anyway, we stayed in this nice hotel, although we only had about 4 hours sleep, because we were up at the crack of dawn this morning for our flight, which was not direct to Podgorica, as it should have been, but we had to go all the way to Warsaw in Poland. So we flew to Warsaw, and actually that was a really, really nice flight because I met a guy there called Henrik, and he was a half Polish, half French guy. He was a really interesting chap, and I had an amazing chat with him on the plane, all about spirituality, about psychology, about linguistics. What a fascinating guy. And it was also, we started off talking in English, he had excellent English, but we switched to Spanish, and it was probably the biggest chat I've ever had in Spanish. So, yeah, it was great. And then we were in Warsaw. That flight was also delayed, although only by about half an hour. So, every flight we'd been on was actually delayed. Got into Podgorica, really hot, and it turns out they lost the baggage with all my money in, all my clothes in, all my books as well. And so, yeah. Now in Podgorica, I think it's a booking.com, this one. It's more like an Airbnb. It's somebody's apartment anyway, where we're staying. And in the Montenegrin capital. The apartment's quite nice, I'll say that. But anyway, so that's that. Podgorica, not been before, have been to Montenegro, but I only went for a day on the end of my Trans-Balkan trip in 2011, and I hired a car and went around Kotor, which is what we should have been doing today, and Titinia, and we were also meant to go to some monasteries. Obviously I haven't done that, so we were absolutely knackered because we had 2 nights of very little sleep. So we wandered around Podgorica. We had a really great meal of like kebabche, which is called chebach here. And then we wandered into the capital. It was very hot, but I don't know, like Podgorica, I mean, nobody rates it, and there's a reason. It is really bland. Like, there's basically nothing there. Even though it's the capital, it's like this sleepy provincial town. It's one of the crappiest capitals I've ever been. I mean, one of the problems is it was there was an earthquake in the 60s or 70s, I think. So it was all rebuilt. But I don't think there was a great deal going on there anyway. And yeah, we wandered around. I mean, it was nice in a kind of chilled out way, but it looks a bit rough around the edges. There was a nice gorge bit with a couple of bridges, and there were some like squares that it's communist, but Yugoslavian communism kind of has a different aesthetic to the others, and it's almost like those bad like 1970s developments that you get in Britain, you know. We went to an art gallery. We went to, I think it's the National Museum, and it literally was. There was a room with folk costume, a room with some guns, and a room with some prehistoric stuff. Like, it was really naff museum. And then there was this art exhibition that was also pretty awful, and it was basically a load of photos of a guy in Japan, and the guy looked like my mate Big Steve from the sauna. So that was funny because it looked like Big Steve, but actually as an art thing, I didn't get the point. Anyway, so we went to, that was the only tourist attraction we went to, because I don't think there are any others. And we sat in the main square, and we had a coffee, and then I bought a couple of books, actually. So I've bought this one. They're not a Montenegrin author, unfortunately, but apparently this Liljana Habjanovic Djurovic, apparently she does, she's Serbian, and she does like religious themed books. So I'm quite interested as to what that will be like. Apparently that one's all about Mary. And this, the Damned Yard, is a collection of short stories of Ivo Andrić. I love Ivo Andrić. I read Bridge on the Drina when I was here last time. In fact, I went to Visegrad, where the Bridge on the Drina is. Also read the Day of the Consuls, which is set in Travnik, which is it called The Day of the Consuls? Anyway, it's all about consuls, and it's set in Travnik. And I read that in Travnik, which was quite nice in Bosnia. And I read a collection of his short stories called The Pasha's Concubine. I found it, I think it was in a bookshop in Vietnam. And I really enjoyed it, and it just was the most Balkan book ever, and that's what got me into it. So, yeah, I'm quite enjoying having another Ivo Andrić book. So that's that. Tomorrow, we're meant to go to Novi Pasar. Now, I was kind of hoping the bag would turn up tonight. I've not heard anything from the airport, so maybe not. They said if it doesn't, they'll send it on to Belgrade Airport for us, but that means like several more days without kind of clean clothes and stuff, which is a bit naff. And also my guidebooks are in there, and so I'm going to see half the country without the guidebook. But, yeah, whatever. It is what it is, eh? So yeah, we've got this bus at like 9:45 in the morning, and it didn't get there till 2, so it must be a bloody long journey. But looking at the plane, like from the plane, the mountains are really spectacular. So I think it's going to be quite nice scenery. So that's that. Yeah, pretty awful first day in of our holiday, or second day if you count yesterday, which was always going to be a travel day anyway. We've not explored Montenegro as we should. We've been around the capital and it's crap. But you know what? I'm kind of not that unhappy because it's the Balkans, and I really, really like the Balkans, and everybody understands when I speak Bulgarian here, so because the language is pretty similar. So that's it from me. Keep traveling.